Very good afternoon to all of you. I, Dr. Sanjib Pattnaik, again welcome you back to our sessions on the project management paper that is having a code of MMPO 002. We have already covered block 1 and block 2. There we have seen the various aspects of the project. That means the introduction, the planning stage, how it could be done. Now we are to the monitoring and control part of the project. That is while implementation of the project is going on or the activities are being carried out actually. We constantly monitor the progress of the activities or the project in general and the deviations, how it can be controlled, those things. Now in today's session, we shall learn about the project risk management. Now, before we discuss anything else, let us see what is this particular unit means to us. Project. All of us know that project is a unique endeavor to serve some purpose. Purpose means some objectives. Now, these are having some scope in terms of time, cost, and the, we can say, the impact on the whole. Now, projects can be broken down into several activities. Each activity have a starting point and ending point, and they are sequenced in proper manner so that we start the project and we get a completed project in the given time and cost. That is our objective that we try to attain. Now, what is that risk? Many of us in our day-to-day life use the word called as risk. We try to say that activity carries much risk. This activity does not carry much risk. So what that risk means to us? As we move on, we shall be looking at what is the meaning of the risk, how we can calculate it, how is it helpful for a project. And finally, the term is management. Now, all of us know that doing the things in the right way, at right time and right cost is called as management. Now, in order that the activities are done in the proper way or correct way, we have to take into account the risks involved in the activity. Now, these risks we have to incorporate or we have to think of during the planning stage. But some risks are there which we have not incorporated in the planning stage. It can arise at some part of the actual implementation of the project. So our whole this particular unit will be discussing about the project risk management. Now, just as I said, what is a project? Project is a unique endeavor where set of inputs. Inputs means it may be man, it may be machines, it may be materials, it may be the cost, etc. are taken together and activities are carried on. Activities means the small fragments of the total project. We can break down the project to small activities. Now these small activities will combine together to make up the whole project. Now our objective is always to reach the goal of the project. That means it should attain successfully the planned time duration, the planned cost or the budget, the planned scope of the project that was envisaged at the initial stage or the planning stage. Now, the project has a purpose to be attained in terms of cost, performance, and schedule. Just now we said about that. Projects are unique. Yes. You may say two dam projects. Dam means the big dams that are constructed across the rivers. So, we cannot say two dams are similar. Each dam has its unique characteristics, maybe in the structural design, maybe in the cost incurred, maybe in the time elapsed to complete it, etc. Now, we say that projects are unique because it differs from each other, even though we are carrying out similar type of projects. And each project has a planned time duration to complete that. Now, what is that planned time duration? Now, during the planning stage, we try to judge what should be the duration of the project. While the actual implementation goes on, we try to adhere to the planned schedules. Because we know if we don't adhere to the planned schedules, then the actual cost may overrun the budgeted cost, leading to higher cost or financial difficulties for the project. So we have to complete the project in a given planned time. Now, when we are talking of monitoring, we can know about whether a project is deviating from its planning stage. That means the actual progress in the project. Are there any kind of deviations in the planning stage? Now, if the deviations are having a positive impact on the project, we say that yes, it is good for the project, like under budget, like before schedule. Now, these things are having a positive impact on the project's purpose. But sometimes also we have the deviations which have a negative impact on the project's purpose. Negative impact means the cost overrun or the elongated time or the duration may be higher as planned. Project is exposed to future uncertainties. Now, always we talk about project. That means we try to conceive the idea of the project, then we plan for the project. Now, these plans will be carried out in the future periods of time. So, we say that activities of the project are exposed or they have an impact of the future uncertainties. Now, what is that future uncertainty? Suppose I have thought of completing an activity by spending rupees 1 lakh. Now, this activity will be carried forward in the future time period. However, I find that the particular activity, when it is actually being implemented, the material cost, that means the material which are used in that particular activity, increases in the actual time period. So here we are facing some kind of uncertainty, which will be having some kind of impact on the particular activity, which in turn will be affecting the project's future. Now, these future uncertainties for which the project is exposed to, or the activities in the project are exposed to, may be due to the actual circumstances arising in the future period of time. Or we know that at this particular juncture, the technological development is occurring at a very fast rate. Now, if our project, when it attains its objective, is not up to the updated technology, then what will happen? Our deliverables may not be accepted for which it was created. So the technological development also will have an impact on the project. The project passes through distinct stages called as project life cycle. Yes, project also has a life cycle like human being. Now, what is the life cycle? First is the conception stage. That means we think about having a project which will attain some kind of objectives in the future. So, the first stage is the conception or the initiation of the project. Second is the planning and designing stage. Once we make up our mind that we shall go for such a kind of project, now we shall create various types of plans. That means plans for the cost, plans for the time, plans for the of activities, structural plans, use of human resource plans, etc. And respective experts in those fields will be designing the plans. Now, the third stage is after the planning and designing is complete, we try to go for the actual implementation of the project activities. That means we carry out the project activities in real terms. Now, after all the activities are completed, that means the project is complete, we have the last stage of the project, that is the closure of the project, or sometimes also we called as the commissioning stage. So when the project is being closed, we try to close all the agreements, try to bring back all the resources from the project side. Then also we talked about the commissioning. Commissioning means before handing over the project to the customers for whom the project was created, we make some test runs which will see that whether the project is able to get the deliverables, that means outputs of the project, are according to the objectives of the project. So once the commissioning stage or the closure stage is ready, we hand over the project to the customer and the life of the project ends there. Now, up till now we are talking of two terms, uncertainty and project risks. All of us have used these terms, many try to interchange the things, uncertainty as well as risk. Now, what is the meaning of that? Are there any difference between the two? The answer is yes. Now, in a project, a activity suppose is planned. Now, that activity will actually be performed or carried out in the future period of time. Now, that particular activity, suppose we have planned that it will be completed in 2 weeks, that means 14 days. However, actually, when we are doing the activity or we are completing the activity, we saw that it is taking only 12 days. Yes, now it has an impact on the project. What kind of impact? Now there is a deviation of 2 days. Now the question is it good for the project or bad for the project? Now you are saving 2 days. That means the impact is positive or good. However, look at another case. The duration of that activity, which was planned for 14 days to be completed, actually takes 19 days, 19, that is 19 days. Now here we are having a deviation of 5 days. Now is it good or bad? The answer is the deviation is increasing the project activities duration. Thereby, the whole project may get affected by this higher duration of the activity. Thereby it will lead to the project time overrun, which is bad. Now, we have to find out the deviations and we have to analyze whether it is good or bad. That means its impact, whether it is giving us good things or bad things. Now, when we are talking of any future activity, for example, you take from our daily life an example that taking the raincoat while going to office by bike. Here, going to office and coming back are future activities. We know that it will be carried out in the future period of time. Now, when you start from the home to office, it is a activity that is actually in progress. Now, there are two things in front of me, whether I shall take the raincoat or I shall not take the raincoat with me. And this is a rainy season. I look at the sky and find that it is bright and sunny. No trace of the clouds in the sky are present. So looking at these things, I judge that why to carry the raincoat today. So I move on to the office. But on the way, the clouds, they appear from nowhere and it starts to rain. And I have to reach office in time. So what will happen? I will get drenched. So this impact is bad for me. However, if it would have not rained today, I could have reached office in proper condition. That is good. Good impact. Now, uncertainty, when we are speaking of, we describe it as the outcome that is going to be generated from a future course of activity. That means the outcomes that will come out of future course of activities, we call it as uncertainty. Why? Because the outcomes are more than one in numbers, and we do not know exactly which one or which option will occur. Now, risk. In our example of rainy coat and going to office, there were two options. If I do not take the rainy coat, I leave it at home. The two options are, if it rains, I'll get drenched. If it doesn't rain, I'll reach the office safely. Which one is good? Na? If it doesn't rain, I'll reach the office safely. So it is having a good impact. Now, look at the other option that I have in front of me. If it rains, I'll get drenched, or I may get late to the office, which is a bad impact, a negative impact for the project. So any outcome, any future outcome which is having a bad impact or negative impact on the project is called as risk. Now, another word is probability. When we are talking of future activities, we do not know exactly what will happen in the future. We try to make some assumptions based on the various conditions. Now, if it is rainy season, I know that there is maximum possibility or chances that it may rain. Now here two things are there. It may rain, it may not rain. Now in rainy season, the chances of having rain is very high, and not having the rain is very low. Suppose I say chances of having rain in the rainy season is 80%. That means out of 100 times, 80 days it will rain. Remaining 20 days it will not rain. Now, out of these chances, we do not know which one is going to happen, but we take these chances into account for our project. Now, the probability is described as the chances of happening of any outcome, like having rain, that is 80%, not having rain, that is remaining 20%. So, whatever are the total options for any given activity that may happen in the future will always total to 100% or it is equal to 1. Now think of summer season. In summer, what will happen? The chances of rain is very less. That means the probability of having rain today is very less. Suppose we say 5%. So having no rain today is the remaining one, that is 95%. So the probability depends upon the circumstances also. So when we are talking of project risk management, it seeks to increase the probability and impact of positive impacts. positive events. Here we are discussing a small example of our daily life. While going to office, will it rain or will it not rain? If it rains, it is a negative event for us. If it doesn't rain, it is a negative. In other words, also I can say it also tries to reduce or decrease the probability and impact of negative events. Yes, that is what we should do. Any losses or damages, that means negative impact, should be taken care of so that they get as much as possible reduced. Now, the project risk varies according to project type. Project type, we can say simply private sector, public sector. In private sector, the funds are arranged by the promoters and the project is carried on. Arrangement of funds is difficult, but the intention of completing the project at the right time and right direction is very much there. However, in, we can say, the government projects, funds may be available, intention may be there. However, sometimes due to negative intention, you may get less amount of funds to complete the project, thereby delaying the completion of the project. Next is industry. Now we know that industries differ from each other. We cannot say that the iron and steel industry is same as the electronic goods industry. Now, suppose I take a risk of technological development. In iron and steel plant, we will be finding the technology that is being used is of more than 100 years period, or it will continue for a very high amount of time period. However, in electronic goods, we will be finding the technological developments are so rapid that we should be adaptable to these changes. Otherwise, we'll be wiped out of the market. Third is experience. Now, if we do or go on having similar kind of projects, it may be unique in nature, that means one is differing from the other, but many activities will be similar in different projects of similar nature. Like in construction of dams, activities in dam A and dam B, some of them will be similar. So as we go on having or doing more projects, we get a fair idea about the exposure of activities to the future uncertainties and how to handle it. Next is scope. Now, when we are talking of scope, what are the deliverables the project is going to provide after it is completed? Now, if the deliverables are large in number, then the project will be having a very large number of activities to be completed, because each deliverable will be having its own kind of activities. And size. Yes, we know projects differ in size, big projects, small projects, etc. Now, if it is a big project, we know that the fund involvement and the time to complete that is very, very high as compared to smaller projects which may be completed in months, having a lower budget. Now, the big projects are exposed to various kind of risks like technical development, like the availability of funds, etc. But small projects, you can keep pace with the technological development and financial arrangement. However, it may face the risk of adaptability. Is the small project adaptable to the future circumstances of rapidly changing the technological developments? If no, what can be done? Shall we add facilities to the existing industry? The answer may be no, due to unavailability of space or fund crunch. Now, another thing is types of organization. Now, when we are having types of organization go for project, yes, but organizations try to look at how much they are getting out of the project. That means what are the benefits that will accrue to them from the project. Here, three type of organizations are there. One is risk averse. From the name itself, we can say the organization is not willing to take risk. If it is taking risk, it will want higher amount of returns or benefits from the project as compared to the cost involved. Another one is risk neutral. That means if the costs are equal to benefit, the project organization will jump into the project. And finally, we have a third type called as risk lovers. Now here, organizations or project organizations love to take risk, even though there are chances of lower benefits as compared to cost, but the remaining chances are higher costs, lower costs as compared to higher benefits, and those higher benefits may be very, very high. So here they may take chance even though the risk is high. So these are the three type of organizations according to the kind of risk they undertake. Risk management process. Now it is a process. When we talk of risk management process, definitely we shall try to identify the risk and see or analyze what that risk is going to do in our project's objective. That means what kind of impact it will be having, and immediately can we take corrective actions to reduce the negative impacts. That means the response, how we respond to the developing scenario as the actual progress of the project is going on. So this has to be done constantly. So The various phases can be described as identification of any possible risk. So by constant monitoring, we can see or find out if there are any possible risks arising. And we analyze if the risk is there, whether it is having a good impact or bad or negative impact on the project's objective or goals. Then we look at the probability of the risk. That means what are the chances that the particular risk will arise. In our example, we saw in rainy season, the impact of getting rain on a particular day is very high as compared to the summer season. So according to circumstance, so what is the probability of the risk? How do we respond if the risk is having a bad impact? Next is, can we make some changes in the project plan in order that the project risk that is arising out of a particular activity, it can be brought down. So monitoring and review actions will control the risks. Now the risk responsibility. Who are responsible for what kind of risk? First is identification of risk. Now here we say all stakeholders are responsible for identification of risk. It is not only the duty of the project manager, but it also takes into account the duties of the project team, the top management, the executive management, the outside stakeholders, etc., regarding if any risk is going to develop. Then we maintain a recorded document called as registry of the risk that has been identified, and this will be done at the responsibility of project manager. Now the risk which is being identified, we try to assess that. How much is the risk impact that is going to be on the project? So it is the responsibility of all stakeholders. Now, from the identification, assessment and registry, statements regarding risk will be generated. By whom? By the project manager. Now, when we talk about response options, we saw that identification of risk was the responsibility of all stakeholders. So how shall we respond to that? So this also is the responsibility of all stakeholders. Now, whatever are the options, we send it to the top management or the project directors for approval of a option. Then, according to the approved option, the project manager develops a contingency plan and tries to manage the response, and finally prepares report of the risk that was identified, option or option of responding to it that was adopted, and how it was managed, and finally the reporting is done to higher authorities. By whom? By the project manager. When we are talking of project identification techniques, we have 4 different techniques now. One is review of documents. Second is brainstorming. What is brainstorming? Now, few or some stakeholders will be brought together. They will be asked about the progress and the risk involved in the project. They will give their opinions to the project manager. However, here brainstorming can be detected by some senior personnel. Third is nominal group technique. Now here few experts are called and they are given a particular task of identifying the risk by use of a scale. Scale means scale will be having numbers varying from 0 to 5. 0 will be, we can say, no risk. 5 will be very high risk. And 3 is risk neutral. So according to the scale, they will be trying to judge what are the various risk factors score. And this will be taken by the project manager and he will be trying to compile it and find out what is the risk. Lastly, we have another technique that is called as Delphi technique. Usually what happens, experts in different field do not have time to come together or sit together at a given point of time. We send questionnaires to them regarding any kind of risk that will be involved in the project. Now these questionnaires are answered by them and they are mailed back to us, which are compiled again. So these are the 4 different risk identification techniques that we have. Now, how risk can be categorized or divided? Now, risk first can be categorized according to its stage in life cycle. Already we have seen life cycle has 4 stages: initiation, design, implementation and closure. So at which stage the risk may arise, accordingly you categorize them for the life cycle of the project. Then risk having an impact on cost or scope, that means goal, the time schedule or quality. Also are categorization of risk according to the project objective. Now risk can also be internal and external. Now when we talk of internal risk, any risk that is going to occur due to the activities, the team members, the project organization or the internal management is called as the internal risk. In other words, sometimes also we call it as unsystematic risk. That means it is a project specific risk. Similarly, we can have also external risk. Any risk which is having an impact on all type of projects in similar manner, that means the economy as a whole, are called as external risk, or in other words we can say it as the systematic risk. That means risk generated out of the system. Then risks in international projects, that means which are done offshore. Suppose we are a project organization set up in India, we have taken up to have a project done in another nation. So that becomes an international project. So there risks can be of financial nature. That means due to foreign currency exchange rates, we may have financial risk, legal risk. Their rules and regulation may be differing from us. Political risk. What is the political stability in that country? Cultural risk. That means whether their society is same as our society or different from that. Technical. Now we know that technology differs from place to place also. So according to the country where you are setting up your project, international project, you have to go for the particular technology. Now, how can I find out the risk or measure the risk? In statistics, we measure the risk by two ways, from the historical data or from the future information. Now, the symbol used for risk calculation is sigma. All of you can see there sigma, that is risk. It is calculated using the formula root mean squared deviations. Now we have a given example. Let us see how can I calculate the risk here. First column, it is given to us the impact percentage. This is historical data. Already it has been recorded. That means from the previous activities, these are the things we have got as impact of the risk. Now here, first what I do, I find out the average impact for the 4 time periods. For average impact, that is here, I have to calculate the total impact first. So 5 minus 4, 1, 1 plus 8, 9 plus 3, 12. So the total of the impact is 12. Now, what is the average impact? It is 12 divided by 4. N is number of items taken for the study. You can see 4 items. So that gives me a value of 3 or plus 3, you can say. So the average impact is 3 from the historical data, which we are going to use as impact, expected impact of that kind of risk in our project activity if it occurs in the future. Now, deviations. From the formula, we are going to calculate the sigma, that means the risk. It is the difference between the actual impact and the expected impact for various time periods. The first one is 5 minus 3. Second one is minus 4 minus 3. Third one is 8 minus 3. Fourth one is 3 minus 3. If I calculate it, this is 2, this is minus 7, this is 4, this is 0. What I do? Now I square the deviations. 4, 49, 16, 0. Now, what is the mean of the squared deviations? Now I add all the deviation squares. That gives me a value of 69. Oh, sorry. This one is 5. So this one is 25. So here the total is 78 divided by 4. That gives me a figure 78 is the total divided by 4. So that gives me a figure of 19.5. So what I do, standard deviation is equal to root over of the root over d square by n, that is 19.5, that is equal to minus 4.3 something, averagely 4.3. So what I can conclude? Now, the average impact which we are taking or considering as 3 can vary between 4.3 on either side. That means we can add it, we can negate it also. So that variation is called as risk. Higher the risk, then better it is to avoid it. Now, whenever there is future expected data, we talk of future, we take into account the probability. Now, here the same 5 minus 4, 8, 3 impact I have taken. Now, we have used probability of that impact happening. Now, expected impact when I am calculating, that is equal to probability into I. So here I go on calculating, that is 2 plus 2, this is minus 0.8, this is plus 2.4, this is plus 0.3. And what is the expected impact or the mean I am having? Nah, it is 3.9 summation of pi. Now once I get the mean, we adopt the same process as in the historical data and we try to find out the sigma here. Right? Now, when we go to project, how we assess the risk, that means how the risk is calculated. Now here the risks are scored based on their probability and its impact on project's objective. Impact is represented as I, probability is represented by P. So risk score is calculated as we have done in the expected data or the future data, probability into the impact. Now here we try to construct the probability impact matrix. So probability on the vertical axis and impact. So I can divide into 4 quadrants. This one is high probability, this one is low, this one is low impact, this one is high impact. Suppose I find a project My project is falling in this case. So the probability of the project risk is low. You see, the probability is low. However, the impact is high. So here we have to be careful that if it is positive, well and good, low probability is there. But if it is negative, then impact will be high also. So thereby we have different kind of projects according to the kind of probability and its impact. When we go to quantitative methods, we use either Monte Carlo simulation. That means we try to use random number tables and find out relationship between independent and dependent variables. That means risk and its impact on the particular activity. Risks are independent. They may occur at any point of time in any amount in the future, for which impact is dependent. Then also we look at sensitivity analysis, where the project objective of time, cost and scope are taken. We try to see the impact of a particular risk, suppose on the time. What we do? We do not change any other objective, that means cost, quality or scope. Only we see the impact on the time duration. So whenever you keep all other elements constant and see what is the impact of a project by taking a single item at a time, then it is called as sensitivity analysis. The most widely used, here we can see quantitative method, is expected monetary value, EMV value. A project's total cost is 5 lakh. Calculate the project's EMV from the following identified risk. Now let us see. Project cost is 5 lakh rupees. All right. Now here, first is threat 1. Threat 1 means negative impact. Opportunity means positive. Okay. So what is the impact? First one is 0.2 into 1 lakh. You can see, you can multiply this two. That gives us a figure of 20,000. Here the second, you can take it as 40,000. The third one you can take as 15,000. Fourth one is, you can multiply again, 25,000. So when you are calculating what is the expected monetary value of the project, EMV, we calculate it as project cost me 5 lakh rupees plus what are the negative impacts I am having? 20 plus 40, that is 60,000. You can see, minus how much is the cash inflow due to positive impacts? Now 40,000. So total becomes 5 lakh 20,000. So total cost we had expected is 5 lakh. However, we are expecting a monetary value for the project as 5 lakh 20,000. That means a increase of 20,000. So this 20,000 is our contingency amount. Contingency means keeping the thing, keeping the amount for future requirements. Next is decision tree analysis. Now here, how can we do it? A project requires a prototype to be developed, which is costing us 20,000. If it is developed, there is a 40% chance of failure with impact of 50,000. Now, either we can go for the prototype or we cannot go for or we will not go for the project, a prototype. What to do here? So I am doing the decision tree here. Whether I will go for the project or I will not go for the project. It leads me to a decision, either yes or no. Now, if I go for the prototype, again I face a decision that whether it will be success or it is failure. Now, success has a 60% chance and it will give me 4 lakh rupees. So, what happens? Now the EMV is 60%, that is equal to 2 lakh. The second is I will not or I will be having failure. Here, if I fail, 50,000 will be lost. The EMV becomes minus 2 lakh 50,000. Ultimately, the monetary value here I am getting is 1 lakh rupees, a 1 lakh 20 rupees, 20,000, and here it is 1 lakh. So finally, what I am finding, the expected monetary value if I go for the project is plus 20,000. For the prototype, if I go forward, I'll get 20,000. If we calculate in similar way, if I do not go for it, you'll find that I will lose 140,000. So definitely the answer is yes. So while planning, either you avoid risk, transfer the risk, or reduce it or accept the risk according to the probability and its impact level. Thank you.